In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Marianne's guests are leaders in their field, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in their own work. They teach others to develop, refocus, and grow. Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. And remember, make every moment count.
Hello and welcome to Moments with Marianne. Today my special guest is Alexandra Chauran. She is an amazing author and highly gifted individual, and we're just going to get right into it. Welcome, Alexandra.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for being on the show. Now, I came across your book, 300 Ways to Strengthen Your Spirituality, and I definitely wanted to talk with you. And I know you've got a plethora of books out there. You're a busy person.
Absolutely, I love to write.
Oh my goodness! I know you have another book coming out next month. Hey, what's the title of that book?
Compassion is the key to everything, I think. Don't quote me on that one. I've got too many books to keep track of. That's for my publicist to think about, but I believe it is Compassion is the Key to Everything, which is a book about, it's a book about sort of becoming more harmless with your life and, finding compassion for yourself and others while also finding balance in, the modern world where we can't really quit everything and go live on a mountaintop.
Hey, I've done that. At some point, you've got to come down the mountain.
That's right. Especially for to share messages with your loved ones. Absolutely. The guru life is not the life for all.
No, it's not. But there are some benefits to living on the mountaintop. You don't have any cell service. You really get to unplug and detach. But yes, at some point you do have to come down. So, well, why don't we talk a little bit for our listeners about your background? And because I was just so amazed by all the books you've written. And why don't you talk a little bit about that and what inspires you?
Well, spirituality inspires me a lot, obviously. I write a lot of books in the topics of body, mind, spirit. I write a lot for Llewellyn Publications, one of my favorite publishers. And I'm inspired mostly by finding ways to make spirituality accessible for people. And let me tell you a little bit about my weird personal life with my friendships. I've kind of gained a reputation among my friends for being a spiritual matchmaker. So instead of proselytizing for one religion, I tend to meet people and think, oh, wow, I really love to hear their thoughts. And some of these are like mine, some of these are not like mine, but they're like someone else's. And I've actually sort of match-made some religions for my mother and my sister and several of my friends. And so 365 Ways to Strengthen Your Spirituality was born partially out of that natural urge to connect people. I'm definitely a Gemini. And it's one of many of my books on the topic of spirituality, but I also do a lot of books on fortune telling and magic and things like that.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, and you have to be pretty gifted to be able to connect people in that way. I mean, because that can be kind of a toughie, I think we all have gifts, and I prefer to think of them as strengths, because it's not something that I necessarily have that's better than anyone else, but it's something that I actively develop in my life and something that I just plain enjoy doing, connecting people. Our home is sort of a grand central station for spiritual people. I'm always inviting people over for meditation groups or discussions or classes, and I love watching my children grow up around that. Oh, what a great experience to have that, with such an open mind and really openness about that, it really gives them the opportunity to explore the things they like and don't like and figure things out for themselves, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's tough for people because we tend to crave structure, and so sometimes an eclectic approach isn't really the right approach for a specific individual. Sometimes a person is seeking more, and so I wrote my book, 365 Ways to Strengthen Your Spirituality, as a way to help those seekers, whether they're somebody who's actually trying to find a religion or a specific path, or somebody who's just a lifelong seeker and wants to continue seeking in constructive ways.
And it seems like when we start on that path, we are kind of that lifelong seeker. At least it's been my experience that way. It's like, you know, then another piece of our spirituality, at least for me, has like it continuously unfolds. So if I'm, you know, if I have the courage to walk through certain things and deal with stuff, just, you know, everyone has things that they need to look at and address. You know, and it's not a bad thing. It's just how life is. From going from, yeah.
I think a lot of my books are in the self-help sort of section of the bookstore, but I like to think of it more as sort of spirit help. You know, you're not just helping yourself, you're connecting with spirit in a way so that there's an exchange and hopefully growth.
Yeah. Well, and that makes perfect sense because, you know, we all have to start somewhere, you know, and one thing I really did appreciate about your book, no matter where people are at in their journey, they could pick it up and it makes sense, you know, so it helps them no matter where they're at. It's not like you need to be of a certain mindset. It has, or at a certain level, it has information for everybody at every level. Which I was really
no experience required. We'll train. Absolutely. Yeah, I wrote it right after an experience of teaching a bunch of seekers for a year and, you know, wanting to find something structured for them, but also something that would reach them at whatever place they're in, because a lot of people have no experience with religion. A lot of people have negative experiences with religion that they're trying to get away from. And all those people, I just kind of held them in my heart as I was writing and tried to find a way to reach them if they want to be reached.
At certain levels. And you can tell that, I mean, it shows in your book. It really does show in your book. Now, for our listeners, I wanted to get a little bit into your background. I know you're a second-generation psychic intuitive. So were your folks... because it seems like when I've worked with people who are psychics or psychic mediums, it does seem like there's a generational thing there. Is it your folks that are psychic and you picked up on it?
Yeah, my mother mainly. I think that rather than it being something that's necessarily genetic, I think it's kind of like a family culture thing. I think that a lot of kids are naturally intuitive. And in Western culture, they're often sort of told to squash those feelings down. You know, those are crazy feelings, or they're silly. And especially where I live in the Pacific Northwest, it's a very secular region of the country. And so I was really lucky to be born into a family that really supported my life as a seeker and encouraged me along the way, rather than trying to make me fit in a way that would crush some of my spirit.
Well, it sounds like they very, very much supported you on the path that you're on. You know, it's kind of what kind of got you on your path is by supporting that part of, you know, of your just growing up, you know. So was it something that you can openly talk about with your folks and they, you know, it was like open discussion or
Oh, yeah. I think, you know, my mom was sort of a seeker. She's been a seeker her whole entire life. She basically changes religions about once a decade and, you know, becomes an ardent seeker each path she goes on. my father was an atheist, but really supported me and my seeking, so much so that, my folks would drive me long distances to religious study groups that I wanted to check out when I was a kid and a teenager. And yeah, it was something openly talked about. Like, one experience that I've written about before is when I was a little kid, probably my daughter's age, 4 or 5, and I had an out-of-body experience. I saw myself floating above my body, and my body was laying there unresponsive. And when that experience resolved and I once again felt like I was in my own body, I freaked out, and I went running to my mom, crying and screaming. And she just calmly explained to me, "Oh yeah, that's an out-of-body experience, and it's safe." And and that's kind of the calm way that my mom addressed any questions about anything under the sun that was completely zany. She was never afraid. She was never, tried to shame me or anything. And so that's just the general environment in which I grew up. Very lucky.
What a great mom. She's just matter of fact. "Oh, you just had an out body. You're okay. Go back to school."
Yeah, exactly. Instead of just being like, and trying to distract me with other things and say, "Oh, that wasn't real. Just forget about it." Instead, she explained to me that it was a thing and something she had experienced too, and something that I could take further if I wanted to, or avoid if I didn't. And that's how I try to come across. I'm a mom myself now, so I try to present similar sort of things to my readership and allow them to pick and choose what they want to develop in their own lives.
Oh, definitely. And and you're 100% right. I mean, you hear all the time about children, and they have little play buddies, or they see things, and either that can be developed or shut down. So, which what an extraordinary mother you had. She sounds like she was just a lot of fun. Now,
she's still my biggest fan.
Oh, hey, that's even better yet. So. But I wanted to kind of just toggle over to about your book a little bit. You have your book separated in sections. So you start off with the environment as part 1 with your book. And so when you wrote it and you're talking about the environment, what was the inspiration behind that?
Well, I actually have a master's degree in teaching, and I was a curriculum leader for a school district, so I learned a lot about developing curriculum. And when I was writing this book, essentially what I was hoping for is a year-long curriculum for seekers. And so I had to sort of get back to basics, start at the bottom, and begin with the environment, because the teacher buzzword here is scaffolding. When you're teaching somebody something, you can't just bust out with some high-level thing if they haven't experienced, the foundation of the learning, right? You got to learn to add, subtract, multiply, and divide before you move up to higher math. And so the environment and basic observation skills are really the core essentials, and something that anyone of any age can begin to identify with. So that's why I tried to just start at the beginning and start with something simple that I believe everyone can reach, no matter where they are in their journey.
And that's perfect, because you go over, sections like full moon, you go over the moon and the planet, and it just, I found it to be a really enjoyable read, going through each of these sections. And then, so that's the first part, is you have the environment, and the second part, you're discussing the body. And what brought you to bring in the body next? I know it's probably like the next layer, but was there any specific motivation when you had this set up? You're thinking, okay, I'm going to start with this, and then we're going to move on to this next, and really see, because I love how it all came together.
Absolutely. One of the downsides of being an eclectic seeker, picking and choosing what you like, is that oftentimes you miss out on this really important scaffolding, because you jump into something that you really like, you're like, ooh, astrology is really cool. I want to learn about all this. And you haven't really worked on the background of astrology. You haven't really, figured out what each of the components means. And so you end up relying on an external teacher or something external instead of doing it yourself. So what I tried to do with this scaffolding, building one layer onto another, is begin with the physical and the material and gradually move through the mental to the more spiritual aspects. Because I think that people are more comfortable a lot of times with their environment and with simple results that they can see. I wanted people to see physical results in their life, because that's really what motivates learning and motivates the desire to seek more spirituality, is seeing the real life results going on in your life, in your body, in your environment.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And then it really helps you to further develop and hone your skills, because then you're seeing results. I mean, because everyone, especially I have some friends that are very scientific, and, they have to see it and prove it for it to be a thing, but, I think most people do want to see some, some proof of one kind or another, something to show up.
Right, and I saw a lot of that in seekers that I was teaching, and even in friends and family who sort of envy my spirituality and want it for themselves, but can't really get over barriers that have to do with their own background and their own habits of mind. And so I was hoping to make things accessible to those scientific types, as well as, providing some more out there things that people can grasp onto and try and see if it works for themselves.
Now, during the course of, because I know you kept many people in mind, is there a specific story that really stands out when you were writing this book that you're like, gosh, I really have to write this for, this person or these group of people?
Yeah, I think that my sister I kept in mind when I was writing the whole section on prayer, because she really envies my prayer life. I'm a very prayerful person, and she wants that for herself, but she has those sticky things in the background, the worries of like, this feels silly. What if it's not doing anything? And I'm talking to myself, like,
yeah,
all
or
of those
am I
things.
doing this right?
Right, because I think that a lot of times as spiritual teachers, we get to a point in our lives where we kind of forget what it's like to be at that rudimentary beginning. Or, because for me, prayer was something that I learned as a small child, and that I never had negative experiences with it or things that would throw me off of the path of developing it to my adult prayer life today. But a lot of people either started as kids and then something stopped them, or they've never approached it successfully at all. And so I really kept her in mind when I was writing, because she was kind of the perfect example in my mind of somebody who wanted to believe but just couldn't. There were barriers in the way, and I wanted to address those barriers and help her take them down. And I think a lot of people face similar barriers.
Oh, definitely. A lot of people, myself included. So, I was raised Catholic, and when I left the Catholic Church and decided, hey, I'm going to go ahead and start praying, I'm like, wow, there's no one in between me and God. I could just talk away. Hey, how about that? And then,
right. And I think a lot of people come from very diverse backgrounds, and there's so many different barriers, like whether it's Catholicism or Christianity or having no religion is a very big barrier if you want later in life to become comfortable with things that you might have made fun of for half your life.
Well, it's easy to do because it's for my example, it's like when I started to get into prayer, I was going, it took me a while to really figure out what that looked like and what that could be like, because with the upbringing I had, it was, we had like a third party that was involved,
Right.
So,
right. And that's another sort of teacher term that I can talk about is modeling, which means, providing an example, a really concrete example of how to do things. And I really strive to do that in my book. And it's not because, this is the one right way to do it, but just because it's one concrete example of how you can do it so that people can see what it looks like for somebody where it's actually working and functioning properly. It doesn't mean that that's the exact way that's going to work for you or someone else. It just means this is something that's worked for me, and I really hope you try it out.
Well, there's lots of variables to that, so that's perfect advice. Now, if let's say someone came up and said, okay, I'm doing this prayer thing, and but I think that I have some blocks, and it doesn't have to be anything more specific than that. What advice would you give them?
I think I would advise them, well, first of all, don't give up, keep trying, but definitely try other angles towards what you're getting at, because people are just different. We have unprecedented combination of cultures and types of people today. And we're not all the same in the way we access things. So one person might really get a kick out of, praying, just saying, like you said, oh, wow, I can just say whatever I want with no middleman. It's great. Other people might never find comfort with that, and that's okay. They can access prayer through other means, such as, chants and mantras, or simply having an altar or written prayers. There's so many different ways to access spirit, and so it just does no good if you beat yourself up for not fitting into somebody else's mold. Yeah, and would meditation fall within that category as well? Let's say if it could. There's a lot of different forms of meditation. Some of it has nothing to do with prayer. Like plenty of atheists meditate, plenty of non-religious Buddhists and meditate. Who don't believe in a specific deity of any kind. And so I think that meditation is a multi-headed tool. It's kind of like one of those screwdrivers where you can stick in little magnetic attachments and use it for different crafts. Yeah, it has a lot of benefits. It's been noted by science to have many, many benefits as well. And so that's, just whatever works for the individual. There's no right, there's no wrong, just whatever works for you. So, yeah, exactly. And meditation is another thing that I really encourage people not to give up on, because it's hard. And I think that a lot of people just kick themselves because they say, sitting here and trying to control my brain shouldn't be hard. And, I don't want to deal with this anymore if I'm just such an idiot. People beat themselves up, and it's like, no, it's hard. It's downright difficult, even for the most spiritual people. It takes time to develop. And yes, there's different ways to access meditation, just like there's different ways to access prayer. Yeah. Well, and just like any, let's say if I want to become Olympian in some sport, it comes with practice, and you have to, really be just mindful and keep practicing. It's just like any muscle that we would flex, It's like you want to keep practicing it to develop it further. So again, we all start from somewhere, and when I started meditating, I would do the same thing. You'd sit there going, am I meditating? Is this happening? How much time has passed? Oh, shoot, I'm thinking, Right. I think a lot of folks can identify with that, myself included. And so, I try to shy away from telling people something is simple or easy, because, sometimes it just isn't. People are different. I recently took up running as a hobby, and, when I was a kid... When I was a kid, I thought there were two different kinds of people in this world. I thought there was jocks who could do sports and stuff, and there was nerds who didn't do sports and stuff. And I thought that I firmly fell into the latter category. And this was so much so that I actually got out of a year of PE in high school by going to the principal and telling him that I was better than that, you know. And I shouldn't be having to take this worthless thing that, you know, my career was going places. And so as an adult taking up running, I actually failed 3 times to follow a plan because I just tried to run too fast, you know. I thought, oh, you know, I can't do this. This isn't my thing. And it really took me keeping trying and also realizing that I didn't have to ever run a 4-minute mile, you know. And over time,
that's a load off, you know.
Yeah, over time and practice, I kind of got hooked to it, you know, and I found benefits and I found the way that it worked with my body, and now I really love running, and I hope that people find that with spirituality too. If they've ever thought, oh, well, you know, I'm just not a spiritual person and it's just not going to work for me. You know, if you follow a plan, you too fit into the human condition.
Okay, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Alexandra Chauran, author of 365 Ways to Strengthen Your Spirituality. We'll be right back.
Are you dreading your next business trip with all of the unhealthy food choices? Well, eating healthy while on the road for business is no longer a hopeless battle. Natasha Leger, a road warrior herself, not a doctor, dietitian, or nutritionist, but a real-life business person, understands the unique stresses of business travel and has written a book to inspire us and show us how easy it is to make healthy choices while on the road. Order Travel Healthy, a road warrior's guide to eating healthy at TravelHealthyBook.com. That's TravelHealthyBook.com.
Ben Wexler is a gifted leadership development and strategy consultant for professionals who want to transform their organizations and careers. Through a uniquely personalized set of processes, participants discover their unique knowledge, how to leverage that knowledge and experience, and then put it all together with a global strategy. You're more valuable, your organization is more valuable, and the change is viral. Contact Ben at 630-881-1074. 630-881-1074.
In 2012, after returning home from Iraq and Afghanistan, Sean Gobin hiked over 2,000 miles of the Appalachian Trail. Recognizing the therapeutic effects of long-distance hiking, Sean founded Warrior Expeditions, a veteran nonprofit therapy program that supports veterans transitioning from their military service by hiking America's national scenic trails. Equipment and supplies are provided, as well as assistance with job placement. For more info or to help support these veterans, visit warriorexpeditions.org.
Are you stuck in your creative process and hitting a roadblock at every turn? Book an appointment with creativity coach Katie Fowler to turn your art and life around. Katie is an award-winning artist, highly sought-after creativity coach, speaker, TV personality, and best-selling author of An Artist's Journey Through Wonderland. Katie guides people in connecting with themselves, with others, and with their own passions. Go to katiefowler.net now to begin your journey through your creative wonderland.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We've been speaking with Alexandra Chauran, author of 365 Ways to Strengthen Your Spirituality.
Well, and I know I'm going back here a little bit, but for our listeners, why don't you tell them, because we kind of glazed over some of the basics here, definitely I would advise them purchasing the book. It's just a very heartfelt, amazing book and very well structured. But for someone who's like, what is spirit? What is the divine? What would be your simple, well, there's probably not a really super simple answer to that, but what would be your definition of that?
Well, I have a lot of long answers and short answers to that, of course. I think about religion, for example. A lot of people shy away from that word, and religion means relinking to me. It's linking to something greater than yourself. It could be a higher power or higher powers. It could be a higher sense of purpose in life. And so I think that spirit really embodies that amazing sense that we're all striving for. Some people characterize it as love and say spirit is love, and some people conceptualize it as beauty. Spirit is beauty. Mm-hmm. And others, conceptualize it as a mystery. Spirit is a mystery. And I think it's all of those things. One of the things about spirit is that we really can't describe it in words adequately enough. That's why so much music has been made in praise of spirit. And so I think that, the working definition is finding that thing that's within yourself that you're trying to bring out into the world and experience that love, that beauty, that strength and peace, all of that inexplicable feeling that embodies spirit.
Well, and spirit, and for our listeners, so that they understand, and I think this is where you're going with this as well, that spirit is not religion. They're like two separate things. Right. I think that a lot of people shy away from the word religion, but they're very comfortable with spirituality because, spirituality doesn't have to have any kind of order or guide or, pope or any kind of other religious leader telling you what to do. Spirit is something that, came pre-installed on every human. And, people can choose to develop that or they can choose not to develop that as they wish. And it's basically for people who choose to develop it and listen to it, it's more of an inner guidance, as well as our connection to the divine, Absolutely. There's so many different religions that said this message that, the divine is within yourself, not just this external transcendent thing. It's very immanent and it's very personal. And I think that spirituality helps to accentuate that aspect without having to fit into a specific label. I am this religion, I am that religion. You don't have to, you can opt out of that whole show if you want. and really, in my experience, when I became more spiritual than religious, for me it was a greater connection to God, the divine, spirit, whatever, everyone calls it a little something different. So, well, I think I'm going to jump in the deep end here for a minute. And so for our listeners that are new to spirituality, this may seem like it might go a little over, but I don't think it will. So you talk in your book about getting in touch with the feminine divine and the feminine and the divine masculine. Could you explain that for our listeners a little bit? Sure. And, it's funny, you talked about connection, and the original working title for my book was 365 Ways to Connect with Spirit, because that's what I wanted. I wanted people to connect. And in marketing, and they decided to change it to Strengthen Your Spirituality, which is probably more accurate, because
because it's accessible to people who have already connected and just want to strengthen things.
Yeah, you get everyone on every level. It's not just one level, you know? So.
Right. And I think that people's images of God or the divine are often a barrier to spirituality, you know, especially those who came from, negative experiences with a previous religion. And so when I was writing those sections and connecting with the divine masculine and the divine feminine, I wanted to help people, if they choose, to find a space for the divine, because for a lot of people, that really aids the connection process. It's not everyone, you know, a lot of people are also satisfied with a very ambiguous God form, and that's cool too. But for those people who really needed to connect that face with the name, so to speak, I wrote those sections so that they could really explore images of the divine, positive and negative associations and all.
Yeah, the female and masculine components of that. So that they're understanding a little, you know, just about the, you know, it's like in life there's always an opposite of anything. So there's the male, there's the female, and really have them being able to be more in touch with that, and really know that that's something there. I mean, I know there's some people who are visual learners that they really do need to have that definition.
Absolutely, and a lot of people need to have analogs for the mysteries. You know, we can't talk about these things unless we have something that we can relate to in life. And so, you know, for some people, a father God figure is really fitting. Perhaps they had a really good relationship with their father growing up like I did, or perhaps they grew up without a father and are seeking that father. And other people might shy away from the father God image for whatever reasons in their history. And so that's where, you know, the divine feminine is introduced. And yes, polarity and duality is a strong theme when people are trying to theologically understand the mysteries of the world. And so you have to start with the basics. Well, what are the two poles of this duality or polarity? And a lot of people say good and evil. A lot of people say male and female. And so that's what I decided to start with the basics.
And it works. It really works because, you know, you got to start somewhere. But it really helps to make it easy because at least with my path in spirituality, it's a very personalized, very intimate relationship. You know, it's and developing in a way that resonates with me is a big deal, as I'm sure it is with many people who are, you know, seeking information that way. Mm-hmm. So, well, do you know, I know that one of the other chapters you wrote was infusing spirit in your everyday life. Do you have a story you can share with our listeners kind of about that, or in regards to maybe any of the people you came along your journey that were kind of real inspirations for that part of your book?
I think children are my inspiration for that because as a child, I remember having a strong sense of ritual and routine built into my growing understanding of spirit. You know, like before bed, there was always bedtime prayers, you know. Before a meal, you know, you would say a grace or a food blessing. And I think that children really hunger for that ritual and routine. And so, you know, I see it now.
For sure, yeah.
Right. I see it now in my own kids. You know, they love bedtime prayer time and they just want it so badly. And I think that as adults, you know, we often get busy and forget about those rituals and routines and sort of long for that ritual and routine. And so I wanted to show people that you don't have to have a lot of bells and whistles, you know. It doesn't have to look like your Catholic church in which you grew up, you know. There's so many different ways to just turn the everyday into the sacred, like turning your dinner table into an altar for your family, essentially, where you're blessing food and you're speaking prayers. All these little things can be easily built into even the busiest day.
Yeah, and you don't have to be, it's not just for 10-year-olds, it's okay to pray. And
it's okay, it's okay to have these rituals and things, like they're great for grown-ups too.
I mean, and I think and a lot of people, and I know a lot of people from a lot of different walks of life, and some of them are very tied into their spirituality, and there's a group of them that, hey, they are doing just fine with what they're doing, but at some point, I think that people really do get to, if they don't have that connection, there is that yearning for that, that piece that they feel like is being missed. And so it's nice to know that, you can do these rituals or, having these prayer times, and it's really more of a coming together, than anything.
Absolutely. I have a friend who's an atheist, a staunch atheist, and he craves this ritual so much that she has dreams of starting an atheist church, where she sort of envisions having, a choir, having spaghetti feeds for the poor, burning incense and ringing bells, but just without the whole God thing. and I thought that was sort of delightful, because it shows that she's hungry and questioning, even as an atheist, a staunch atheist, and it's, because there's so many people who latch onto their dogma, whether it's atheism or anything else, and refuse to budge or seek or yearn. And I just really respect that about her. And she says I can be the token person of faith on their board of directors, so I'm excited about that.
It'd be an interesting day when we have an atheist with the church,
They actually exist. You'd be surprised. Everybody's lit up on the internet now. It's pretty amazing. They happen.
Well, and I know your book has great inspiration for people who are going through really tough times, maybe if they've lost somebody or divorce or some kind of life challenge. What would be your advice for someone going through something, just really like it's probably the worst time in their life that they've ever had?
Yeah, that's one reason I believe that this book is sort of needed out there in the world, is because, where eclectic spirituality often fails people is when there's a horrible tragedy in life, an unspeakable tragedy. And religion fails people too. But I think that there's a lot more structure in the world's religions for dealing with that. There's specific funerary rites, there's specific prayers written down. People have gone through these things before and are explaining to you how they got through them. And when somebody's developing their own spirituality that doesn't have a brand label, that's great and empowering. But when tragedy hits, sometimes those people feel adrift. I've seen it time and time again, and my heart breaks for those people, because, their spirituality should and can carry them through those times. And so when I was writing that section, I really tried to think about all the different ways that people could renew and rejuvenate their spirituality, even in the face of horrible tragedy and contingency plans in life. And I hope that some people find success in that.
And it's going through any type of grief is definitely a journey. And this book really has some really good information on just a varied amount of things in regards to, like, what do you do if, you're dealing with somebody and, your thoughts in regards to the afterlife, So for atheists, of course, it's going to be much different. A lot of Christians believe they have to cross the River Jordan, walk up to the pearly gates. and see if St. Peter's got their name on the list. So there's lots of different belief systems in regards to that. And, how do we walk through that and be okay? Just walk through this tragedy and still be okay.
Right.
So,
what I've experienced in the past, and I've read in scholarly literature like David Fowler's Stages of Faith, is that people often will fall back on what they know. So, the atheist who's just newly exploring his spirituality, suddenly a child dies and that atheist falls back on saying, oh, there can't be a God with all this. A Christian who is recently converted to, let's say Buddhism, when a death happens in the family, they might go back to those Christian rituals for feelings of comfort and safety. And those are okay. Those are okay coping mechanisms. But I also wanted to point out that there's another option, which is continuing to grow through crisis and tragedy. It's definitely the harder path, and you have to lay some groundwork and think hard about it. But it's possible, and that's what I was sort of writing about in that chapter.
So, and how would somebody do that? The groundwork you're talking about, is that staying with an everyday meditation practice or prayer practice, whatever the belief system is?
Exactly. Like a lot of people forget that they have these tools in their Batman tool belt, right? Like, for example, I'll give an example from my own life. I'm a very spiritual, prayerful person. Prayer really calms me and rids me of negative feelings like anger, stuff like that. But I still yell at my kids because I'm human, right? And sometimes when I'm in the moment and I'm about to just scream at my children, I forget that I have this tool in my tool belt. I can, go and say a prayer, center myself, and not yell at my kids, right? But that doesn't always happen. And so when I was writing that chapter, I was thinking about that, how can you remember and implement those tools on your Batman tool belt of spirituality instead of falling back on old patterns or negative patterns or just complete chaos. As often happens.
All those old behaviors that are easy to get into when people are in a compromised way of feeling. Either they're grieving or they feel stressed or whatever the case is. So,
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
so once you've laid the groundwork in the rest of the book, you have to start thinking about how am I going to remind myself of the divine and of spirit and of this great stuff I learned, even when stuff is getting really bad.
Well, and for people that are going through that, do you recommend that they follow a certain routine?
That's not exactly what I recommend, but it is one way that people can continue to access the divine. I think that, continuing with your routine or if you're going to church, continuing to go to church, maintaining those things can be a salve during times of trouble for many people. So it's definitely one of the tools in the Batman tool belt, but it's not the only one. And sometimes it just doesn't work. Sometimes people will find that there's an error with their routine. They'll find doubt creeping in. And I teach that doubt is a good thing. It's either going to bring you back to your faith stronger than ever, or it's going to help you find something better for yourself. And so I teach people.
That's a fabulous way of looking at it.
Right. So I teach people to just sort of, instead of ignoring that doubt and just trying to plod along with your ordinary routine, if that's not working, identify that and address it, because this is a period of growth for you. It's a time when you can get more.
Usually any kind of chaos time is, they're usually the times of the lesson. So either we can show up and, try to walk through it as gracefully as we possibly can, or we let the lesson get the better of us. And sometimes that happens,
Right. I mean, fake it till you make it is a great strategy. but it doesn't always work. Sometimes you just have to throw up your hands and say, hey, this sucks. And that's okay, too.
And be like, okay. And then be able to pivot and move in whatever direction that would really bring you some piece of serenity or hope, or, just a place where there's not that chaos going on,
Exactly. I'm trying to, instead of pointing out people specific routes on the maps of where to get, I try to provide people with ways to find their inner compass. And yeah, I do show you some great spots on the map that I'd love you to visit. But there's no
you guys stop
one
and
way
see
to
the
get
Grand
there.
Canyon on the way, It's like you guys stop and see the Grand Canyon on the way to Albuquerque or something, So
Absolutely. Life happens.
Well, and so do you have through all of your experience with this book, a story that you want to share with our listeners kind of in closing here?
Yeah, actually, I received a really great email from one of the editors who was editing the book when it was in production. Book writing is a huge process, right? It takes a year or more. And, there's different stages. There's the acquisitions editor, and then they have a team of people who go over and they tell you about revisions. And then there's lots of little amazing production editors who just really fact check and check for any errors. And one of those wonderful saints sent me an amazing long email about how when she was in the course of editing my book, and typically I don't get very many emails from the production proofreaders. I only get them when I screw something up, usually, They say, hey, wait a minute.
Revisions.
Normally they email me and say, you screwed up here. You have to fix this. This is just downright wrong. And she sent me this long email about how my book, while she was editing it, helped her reconnect with a church and begin experiencing a connection with God again that she had been missing. And it was one of the reasons she's been reading all these books and working on these jobs. And it was just so nice to get that, She said, see, look, your book is helping people even before it's published. And that warmed my heart.
Oh, I bet that just touched your heart. It would touch anybody's heart. I mean, my goodness, and they do see a lot of books that come through. That's the job that go through and edit. But, I mean, she really took to heart what you wrote. And I'm not surprised. I mean, with your background and how you structured this book, it's absolutely fabulous. I can't say enough good things about it. Yeah, for sure. Well, I could keep you on the phone. I could keep you online here all day long on show talking about this. Do you have information for our listeners, or where they could buy your book, your website? Do you do private appointments or anything like that, just so that they know how to connect with you?
Absolutely, yeah. My book can be found wherever books are sold, and so I first encourage people to check out their local independent bookstores in their towns. If you got a mom-and-pop bookstore, go check it out, see if you can get it special order, and that would be amazing. But yes,
we can support our independent bookstores for sure, yeah.
Absolutely, and there's a great website called Indie Books where you can find your local independent bookstores, and you can search for my book and see what local independent bookstore has it. Also, you can find it at any big box bookstore or, yes, online at Amazon.com. And on my website, you can find it at seepsychic.com/books. That's SEE psychic.com/books. And I do take appointments for fortune telling in my local area in the Pacific Northwest around the greater Seattle area. And I certainly don't charge for teaching any kind of spirituality because it's kind of against my religion, but I'm happy to entertain emails from people who are seeking something specific, and perhaps I can help, or maybe not. We'll see.
Now, do you do phone sessions with people, or is it all face-to-face?
I do phone sessions, chat sessions, face-to-face, email readings through my fortune telling, even on Twitter. So yeah, I've got lots of different modalities for
even Twitter.
Anyway,
yeah, anyone can get in touch with you.
Absolutely. So yeah, seek me out online and you will find.
What great fun we've had today, Alexandra. Thank you again for taking the time to be on the show. Again, that's Alexandra Chauran, 365 Ways to Strengthen Your Spirituality. And what a perfect way to start the beginning of this new year with a book that will guide you through every day. Just these, it's almost like chicken soup for the soul. These just wonderful, inspiration points to start every day. So we'd like to thank all of our listeners for tuning in. And remember, make every moment count.
Join us next time for Moments with Marianne, when host Marianne Pestana brings another inspirational gifted leader to help us grow. Tune in every second Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for Moments with Marianne, when the Dream Vision 7 radio network is at 1510 a.m. Boston. Or catch Moments with Marianne every Thursday and Friday at 5 p.m. and 5 a.m. Eastern Time by going to dreamvision7radio.com. To learn how Marianne started her business from the ground up, visit mariannepestana.com. Don't miss this, and remember, make every moment count.